Audio. Tune in. What we talking about, bass? Talking about chips. Talking about rings. You ain't got them, zip your lip. You got a problem you haven't found, check your grounds. The show about to start. Tune in. This week in car audio. Yeah. Tune in. This week in car audio.
Welcome to This Week in Car Audio with your host, the Judge, Doug Stockton, and your co-host, Lucky McGovern.
What's going on?
Hey, how's our guest this week will be Matt Young from Mechman Alternators. He's going to talk to us about supplying power to your amplifiers and your battery banks, and we're going to do power management over the next 3 weeks is what we're shooting for here. So if you guys are interested and want to find that this may be what you guys are interested, please share and like this as fast as you can. If you notice Lucky's head's down, he's over there sharing this to as many groups as he possibly can. I would appreciate if you guys would also do that. Remember, I can only see your posts comments on Sonic FX and also on YouTube. I believe if you're watching this from YouTube right now, comment something so I could see that you're I can see the post on YouTube. So well, all right. Yeah. So anyway, let's get this thing going. I'm gonna stop freaking getting messages on that side so I can see. I haven't seen anything on the YouTube side yet. I don't know if that's something I'm doing or what, or maybe nobody's posted. Anyway, Matt, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Cool. So we're going to talk about power management, like I said, over the next couple of weeks. That is a important feature in the car audio industry. In case you guys don't know, it takes power to make power. So if you can't so the formula for power is voltage times amperage divided by impedance gives you your wattage. That's your total power. Well, if you can't produce voltage and you can't produce wattage, or you can't produce one of them, then you aren't going to produce the total power. So super important. You guys need to be able to produce the power, and one way to do it, and like I always say, is start with an alternator. Matt, so what would your suggestion be to all our basshead family out there? Because I know you run into quite a few of them with your big badass alternators.
Well, I would just say try and run the biggest alternator that you can that your belt will support. Certain vehicles, if it's a CRX with a 3-rib drive belt on it, you can only run so much amperage, X size alternator before the belt starts smoking and melt. I'm sure you've seen in lanes many times over the years, somebody starts hammering on it and you just hear it squealing and, smell belt smoke and all that. So try and run the biggest alternator that's reasonable for your application, and also try and run as much battery capacity as you can fit in the vehicle as well. The alternator and the batteries work together, obviously. You kind of have to have both. Some people think you can just run a gigantic alternator and kind of skip over the battery capacity, but you really need both for the system to work well, especially musically.
Okay, one of the things I did have a question about is, so with lithium batteries, I know so I have a boat. I got a 48 volt motor on the back. I got a 36 volt trolling motor, and then I got 12 volt audio and gauges and stuff like that on my boat. So I have 3 different systems: 12, 36, and 48. The
gas
30
boat, I assume.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Just because I live on a lake that I fish for bass. Like
I live on the water too, and we have bass tournaments come through our dock, like fish my dock all the time. So.
Oh, that's awesome. So anyway, so I need a special charger to charge my lithium batteries. How does that work with a alternator in a car? Because a lot of our guys are switching to the lithium batteries nowadays.
it's absolutely the same scenario. And I love that you're touching on this, because there's a lot of disinformation on there regarding alternators, charging, voltage, lithium batteries. You have people building their own lithium cells, people using C-Max, using, Yinglong, all these different combinations. And also, home built batteries, depending on how they series parallel them together, that's going to determine the ultimate charging voltage. And a lot of people don't know. A lot of people, oh, my buddy built this lithium pack in his garage, and it's like it needs like around 16 volts. Well, what does it need exactly? So, and
Right.
sometimes, well, let me call my buddy and see what it says. That's one problem that we see with the proliferation of lithium batteries in car audio. The other problem that people don't recognize is lithium batteries cells require a very specific rate of charge. They need 3-step charging, constant amperage, then constant voltage, regulated amperage, and then a trickle charge at the end. Because the inrush current absorption rate of lithium batteries is so high, and also they can discharge a ton of current really rapidly as well. So, I mean, there are companies that make a sophisticated, thermally regulated 3-stage charger, that you can modify an alternator to use. It's a $900 voltage regulator made by a marine company. And nobody wants to spend the $900 for the regulator, and nobody wants to take the alternator apart and solder stuff to things to make all that work. So how you get around that, for your average base head, that just wants to put a lithium battery bank in their vehicle, how you do that is self-control and a volume knob. And of course, as we all know, that's one of the hardest things to do in this industry. But if you want to make your lithium cells last and you want to make your alternator last, you can jam on it super hard. For burps and things like that, competition, not a deal. But if you're going to do music, if you're going to do any type of musical class or just demo for somebody in a really gnarly system, your best bet is to play it for 5 minutes, let the vehicle continue to run with the knobs turned down, volume turned down, and let the alternator bring your battery bank back up before the batteries get heavily discharged. That's a good way to keep heat out of the cells. It's also a good way to keep heat out of the alternator. I mean, it's just common sense. It also keeps out your voice coils, amplifiers, unless you like rebuilding subs.
Well, Lucky's trying to learn about that rebuilding thing. So.
Yeah, oh yeah, sure.
It gets old for me. Like I got tired of cutting, running an angle grinder and reconing subs. It shows, many years ago.
So reconing them's not a big deal. It's the angle grinder cleaning it up that sucks bad.
Yeah, breathing that stuff in. All that
CA glue.
CA glue.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So I'm glad you touched on, like you said, the important part is the correct voltage. So I have a 48-volt battery for my boat, 2 of them actually, and so they like to charge at 53.8 volts. But once it hits that point, then it wants to die off, right? And then you got to trickle it.
See, the voltage that it needs. The problem is a lot of customers don't. It's like a 12 volt, 14 volt, 16 volt, car audio application. We ask the customer, what voltage do you require?
Right.
And a lot of times they don't know.
Yeah, so that to me was the biggest problem that I saw with integrating lithium is, so these guys build these battery banks, and they are intending to, float maybe 13.2 volts or 13.6 or something, right? So they're intending it to float at a range, but as I mentioned before, I know that I need a significantly larger voltage to charge that. And so I was wondering how these guys were creating the voltage they needed to do that without frying their system, because say you got to turn it up to 24 or 25 volts to get that 15-volt charge. And if you do that, what happens to your ECM, right?
Well, okay, so I can speak on that for sure.
Okay.
Lithium batteries are by now really popular. Everyone has them, the majority of them, I would say, charge somewhere between 14.5 volts and maybe 16.5 volts. I would say 95% of your setups are going to charge in that range. So it's really not that big of a deal. We have a product. It's a little resistor plug that plugs into the alternator. It's like $30. and it boosts. And this is for certain applications. Every application is different. Some vehicles you can manipulate, you can boost the charging voltage.
Mm-hmm.
Other vehicles you can't. It just depends on what it is. But most applications you can plug in. You can custom order an alternator from us. You can say, hey, I have this lithium battery bank, and it wants to see 15.8 volts. That's probably your most common charging voltage that you see today, that we see today.
Okay.
We have a little product. It's a little resistor thing. Plugs in there, boosts the charging voltage up to 15.8 volts. Doesn't damage the vehicle at all in any way. Obviously, if you're talking about 5 volts or something like that, that's a whole different story. The vehicle's not going to be happy with that. Most vehicles will tolerate 15.8 volts without damaging anything.
Well,
and then if you need, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so we found out when we went to the 16-volt systems on these cars, they would handle pretty much that 16 volts, but that was really their limit, because I've been competing since 99, I believe, and that was when we were kind of developing, we were all using the Trojan batteries, right? So you'd use 8 of those things or whatever you have to use to get your amperage. So these would be golf cart batteries, they'd be slow drain batteries, and you definitely charge them differently than off your alternator. So we would always literally disconnect the system from the alternator, and we would have a isolated charger off to the side just to charge those golf cart batteries. And so that's, like I said, so been doing this a long time. I started, whoa, your lights went out. You aren't moving enough. So they, with that, I was always kind of curious, like I said, but I mean, you answered it pretty well. So your alternators are, you can design them when somebody purchases one to charge their bank of batteries, right?
Right. Yeah, the other, hang on, give me 1 second.
So what's yours charge at, Lucky?
15.8, 15.9.
Just like he said, huh? Right,
Yep.
You're right there.
Yep.
Now, is that because you bought a specific ECM for your or a BMS for your bank of batteries that made them want to see 15.8, or was that how someone designed your battery bank?
No, I got the self-regulated, or the we were just talking about
Externally regulated.
External, yeah, there you go.
Right.
So Chris Jenner is the one who hooked those up for me, because normally I was doing 14.8, and then we wanted to bump it up to 15.8, 15.9.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
external regulation is another option. I was
that's
talking
the
about that.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm a big fan of that because you can always turn it down.
Yeah.
That's true. However, the external regulators that are available on the market right now are not super reliable. And also, if you don't install them exactly correct, like every show that we go to, we sell 30 replacement external regulators for people. I mean, they're not even our alternators, just because they burn them up in the lanes. They weren't hooked up correctly or whatever. And also, they're not super awesome to begin with. We're actually working with Tony Delmore, who built the Diamond Box and all that.
Uh-huh.
He's designed a regulator circuit for us, better mousetrap type idea, more reliable, beefier. We're working on that right now. Hope that it'll come out in the next couple of months. But yeah, external regulation is what the route that you would want to go if you need higher voltage, higher than 15.8 volts. 15.8 is about the most that you can achieve by using the diode plug to boost it. So if you have a battery pack 17 volts, let's say, or I mean, like the old 16 volt batteries needed 19.2 volts to fully charge.
Right.
Which is that's approaching the limit. The most alternators have avalanche diodes that start to collapse around 22, 23 volts. So that's kind of basically on a 12 volt alternator, it's kind of the max. And 19.2 will start popping incandescent light bulbs, headlights, instrument lights, things like that.
That's awesome. Let's see some of that.
Oh, I've seen it many times at shows.
And it's not so cool when it's your own stuff doing it, though.
Yeah, well, we explain to customers, hey guys, that's really not everyone thinks a 16 volt battery will yield them 16 volts to their amplifiers. The craziest thing, you see a lot of like Korean amps, they'll go into protect at 16.3, And
Yep.
people go, oh, well, I'll buy 16-volt batteries. It'll be great. Well, for them to be fully charged, it's got to be 19, so it
Yep.
puts them in a overprotect.
Right.
So they can't charge the batteries while they're playing their system. They have to turn the system off, then run the vehicle at 19 volts to fill the batteries back up. And so that's
Yep.
a lot of
So
something people don't consider.
well, okay, so the high-end car audio competitors, that's one thing we definitely we have to worry about, right? Because in DB drag, you have a voltage limit of 18 volts. So it's super easy when you're running a 16-volt system to exceed that 18 volts. And quite often, they'll have to bleed off their system to be right at that 18 volts to run their run. But you got to watch out, because if you supercharge your batteries, they'll have a float charge that goes above their nominal charge, and so it might float at 18.3.
Well, you'll hear guys burp just a little bit to
Yep.
bring that surface charge down in the lanes.
Yep.
To,
But
to get down to where they want to be.
yeah, but you do also have to understand that just because you burped it, it might want to float back up to that 18.3. So that's something they got to be really careful of. And just like I said, it's the power management is a big deal. Like I said, it's a multiple. Voltage and amperage are multiples. Impedance is a divisor. So, when you're running at 8 ohms on a sub, you're going to kill the power that you're getting out of that amp. If your box rises 8 times or 9 times, you're going to kill the power. If you're not producing enough voltage, not producing enough amperage, you're not going to get what you want. Now, with the lithium, my understanding of how these systems are designed now, like I said, I haven't competed since 2005-ish, but with these lithiums, my understanding is so back in 2005, we would need that alternator to be going to refresh our batteries during the run, during the burp, because we were instantaneously relieving it, removing all the energy out of those batteries. We needed to get back in to finish our burp. Now I'm seeing a lot of guys with the cars off, because it becomes, that battery bank becomes their sole source of amperage.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. The majority of our burp customers are gonna just hot charge the thing, the lanes right before, and there again, that goes back to back in the day, you're working, series paralleling golf cart batteries to arrive at essentially a 16-volt battery.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, you can configure lithium cells, like if you're maxed out at 18 volts, you can arrive at a lithium cell combination that you can charge at maybe 18.5, so that when you come in in the lanes to do your burp, you're right at that 18-volt threshold, and you're not going to go over voltage and blow the run, if that makes any sense.
No,
and I think that's what most people are doing nowadays.
So before we start hitting some of these questions in the comments, I'm sure Lucky's seen one. At least I've seen a couple over here on the on the YouTube side. So I was a physics major in college. So I was looking at alternators, as they are a limiting factor in producing power. And I was looking at a generator, because I had a 56 Pontiac, and it was a generator, 6-volt system generator. With a generator, the faster you wind it, the more power it produces, right? So
well, it's still regulated, but
you can remove the regulation in those fairly easy. Where an alternator, because of the design, you're more limited. But when I was thinking of this, I was like, man, you can blow some stuff up really quick with a generator if you try to start screwing with the regulation on it.
Well, I daily drive a 50 Chrysler with a 35 amp generator on it, power steering pump driven off the back of it.
Oh, there you go.
I drove it to work today. So anyways, you have such any automotive generator. You could buy a permanent magnet generator this big,
right?
Off that you would have on a gasoline driven field generator. You could, but not. I don't believe that there's any advantage to that. I think probably from an SPL standpoint or musical standpoint, you're going to be better served to just build a really well-engineered battery bank and have a nice alternator set up to keep that bank charged.
I would agree with that in today's technology.
Yeah.
So, Lucky, you seen any questions up there that you'd like to
Steven said, what type of brand of chargers are recommended?
So a Mechman alternator.
Well, well, for what I mean, I can't. I'm not I know a lot
Yep.
about batteries, but I'm not a battery expert. I think I would say that's a question for whoever manufactured your battery. That type of.
And we plan on getting Scotty Johnson on here soon, speaking directly to the excess power lithium batteries. So he would be a much better person for that question, I would say.
And generally speaking, a three stage charger. I would just buy the charger from who you buy the battery bank from, and
Yep.
you'll probably be in pretty good shape.
Because they design them together, obviously. Okay, so over here, SQ Sounds, they're from Bridgetown, Barbados. I don't know if you already have a distributor or whatever out there. They distribute to quite a few of the islands out there in the Bahamas. Anyway, so he says, Matt, can you explain how you should choose alternator for your car or for the system that you're running? And does choosing the right alternator correspond to the CCs of the engine size?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question.
Okay.
And I kind of go when we were speaking before we got live here. You don't want everyone wants to put the biggest and the baddest everything they can, biggest amplifier, biggest woofers, biggest batteries, biggest alternator they possibly can. That's not always a good idea. So we do not have a distributor in Barbados. We do in Trinidad and some other areas in the Bahamas, but a lot of the majority of those islands, it's mostly Japanese imports. Some Europeans, it's like 1.3 liters, 1.5 liters, generally small 4-cylinder engines. And absolutely, like back you remember, in the early competition days, CRX was the car to build, because
Right.
they're loud, and they had a 3-rib serpentine belt on them and a 1.5 liter engine. And you put a 400 amp alternator, not only is it going to melt the belt off from belt slip, because the more amperage you make, the more horsepower has to be transmitted through the belt, but it also it'll stall the motor out.
Yep.
So absolutely, yeah, it would in that type of situation, you'd be better served having that same 400 amp housing, but detuned to maybe 200 amps. So because the less peak output that you make, the more low RPM output you make. You can almost think of it like an engine in a car, putting a huge camshaft in the engine. Yeah, it'll make more power at really high RPM, but then it doesn't do anything below 3,000 RPM. Right. So absolutely, you want to, bigger is not always better. The biggest number is not always better. So for like a CRX, a 200 amp, one of our Elite Series units, 1.5 liter engine, you can also run a bigger pulley because you don't have to spin it quite as fast to achieve output. And larger surface area of contact on that larger diameter pulley, belt slip. So, and once the belt starts slipping, you don't get the extra power anyways.
Right.
So that's probably if I make one point in this entire conversation, it would be that bigger is not always better. And if you have belt slip, you're not getting anywhere. It's the belt slip issue first.
Yep. So we get guys that compete in the lanes all the time, and they start railing on their, and all I can hear is the whining of the belt, and I'm just going, you don't even understand that you're not getting anything out of that. You're doing absolutely nothing.
Not only that, once you're done with your run, then you're picking pieces of shredded belt out of the engine, and and they're all flustered, and I'm sure you've did it 1,000 times.
And so, like I said, so through high school, I took whoa, I hear back.
Yes, weird.
Through high school, I took automotive for 4 years through high school. And one thing that we learned back in so this is back in the early 80s, right? So back then we learned that, you can crank your engine as much as you want, but your alternators at roughly 1,800 to 2,100, you got the most you were going to get out of those alternators anyway, as far as RPMs. Is that still the case now, or?
No, not really. I would say peak output on whether it be one of our 6-phase alternators or most of our competitors, a lot of them are built very similarly nowadays.
Find something that works, right?
Hey, competition is healthy for development, and it's fine. They can chase us, and we'll just do. So,
Yep.
But yeah, no. Generally speaking, I think peak output's around 12 RPM shaft speed.
I'm sorry, you broke up there. 20 what?
About 12,000 RPM alternator shaft speed.
Oh, okay.
Really peak output. Most vehicles have a 3-to-1 pulley ratio. So the alternator.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You still hear me? Okay, I just got a internet connection warning here.
Yeah.
Anyways, so 3-to-1 pulley ratio. So divide 12 by 3, about 4,000 RPM engine speed. That's going to be your peak output on most vehicles. That varies. Some cars might be a 2.5-to-1 pulley ratio.
Right.
Some vehicles like GM trucks are a 4 pulley ratio with alternator on there.
Right, and you can also adjust that with the size of the pulley. But once again, as we've discussed in other podcasts, you only have, say, 100 hit points in something. So if you change the size of the pulley, you're going to lose horsepower to get that extra RPM you need on the shaft.
Yeah, right. Well, and you lose surface area of contact, and you're also spinning if the engine is a high RPM engine, you don't have 4-to-1, you don't want to spin it over about 6,000 RPM. Otherwise the alternator is going to be overspun.
Well, and also, but in DB drag and most stereo competitions, we have a limiting factor of 2,000 RPM.
Sure.
So
they figure 6,000 RPM, you're going to be, close to peak output. The difference between 4,000 RPM shaft speed and 12,000 RPM shaft speed is about 15% total alternator output. So it's not a huge difference.
So it's an exponential curve, right? As you get higher on your thing, it dies. Yeah, it just flattens out.
You can go to our website and you can look at output curves on there, and you can chart RPM and all that. And just divide your crankshaft pulley diameter by your alternator pulley diameter. That'll give you your ratio.
Is that a little too technical for you, Lucky?
You think? do you think?
Well, we have if you go to the top of the Mechman website, there's a little thing that says technical resources. Mm-hmm. And we have some really nice articles on there with pictures and diagrams and everything that makes it really simple for people to be able to. I'm not calling you simple, Lucky. Really.
No, but I was like, hey, give me some crayons and everything, and pictures and boxes, and I'll get it. But
there are some excellent resources at the top of the Mechman website, www.mechman.com. Technical resources, and there's also an instructions tab on there. I don't know how many times a day we have people calling. We actually have a really good tech department. We have 3 guys working the tech lines, and a lot of our competitors have no tech department. Some have a phone number. So they'll call in and they'll be like, I got this alternator. How do I change the pulley, or what should I do this or whatever that? I'm like, okay, well, what part number is it? What's your name? And then, it's not a Mechman alternator. I'm like, what? we usually end up helping them anyways, try and be a good sport, but there are some good resources, whether it's a Mechman alternator or not. Those articles are still useful.
Yes. And so, you catching any questions over there on the other side? I've seen a few pop up.
If you've seen them, go ahead and run them, because I'm scrolling back and forth.
Okay. Justin Stolman had some, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was talking to Matt when we were backstage waiting for all this, and some of my questions were like the power runs, because I have people that tell me, run 3 or 4 power runs from your alternator back to the battery bank and this and that, and so if you want to talk on that, what we were talking backstage about, I'm sure people would want to hear your ideas on that. So
yeah, for sure. People love cable. Everyone wants to have really pretty, perfectly groomed 6 runs running from everything.
Lucky's one of them.
Yeah, no, I don't.
No. You have plenty in the back of your car.
Oh yeah.
They look pretty in the back, right?
Yeah. But we're talking from the alternator back to the lithium. Yeah.
Yes.
So to try and rehash what we talked about before, try and be brief so I don't eat up the whole time. But batteries can discharge amounts of current to the amplifiers. Alternators are going to only make, like let's say a small battery could potentially discharge 2,000 amps of current. So that's why it makes more sense to run multiple runs of cable off your battery to your amplifiers. Alternate, like a 400 amp alternator at a 15-foot run, like the length roughly, that's about 15 feet.
Right.
A single run of pure copper 0 gauge positive and ground from the alternator directly to the positive and negative terminals of the should be sufficient. If someone really wants to go overkill, they could do 2 positive, 2 runs ground, and that would be okay. But when I see people running 4, 6 runs off these billet, adapter terminal blocks off of an alternator, the reason why that's not a good idea is because there's so much weight, from the cable and vibration and everything, the alternator being on the engine and vibrating and all that, it can work the output stud loose or break the rectifier. And people say, oh, well, you should just make the rectifier beefier or make the output stud bigger or whatever. It's as good as you can make it, basically. And no matter what alternator you buy, we all use more or less the same rectifier, same output, for the most part.
Right.
Most modern car audio alternator manufacturers do. And also that ingot, that huge aluminum chunk you have hanging off that output stud, if you did happen to break that, it did work the stud loose or break that rec stud is pressed into, and it shorts that, touches the alternator housing or anything on the engine, now you're lighting up 6 runs of 0 gauge, or you just burn your car down.
Yeah.
So it's just, and it's not necessary. You're not going to have any, encourage people to try it with 1 run positive and ground directly from the alternator to the terminals of the closest battery, and then fire the vehicle up, bring the engine to 2,000 RPM, measure the output, voltage at, put a, test tone track in there, peak hertz, crank it all the way up to a comfortable volume level, and just load the system down and do a voltage drop test between the alternator and the battery. Record, probe the output stud of the alternator, ground it to the housing of the battery, record that, do the same test, probe the positive terminal of the battery and the negative terminal of the closest battery, record that, then measure the inputs, the amps in the back. I bet you're not going to see, you might see drop between the battery and the amplifier, depending on how many runs you have going there. But I don't believe you're going to see that much voltage drop between the alternator and the battery, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. So the difference is your alternator's force feeding those batteries, and so it's driving the voltage and the amperage. I mean, it's driving it. For lack of a better term, imagine you got a compressor behind a garden hose pushing that, versus you have a vacuum on the end of the garden hose pulling it, is what the amp does. So instead of force feeding the batteries, it's pulling from the batteries. So it doesn't have the same type of force pushing it through the wires. That's why when you add batteries that way, or I'm sorry, when you add wires on the batteries, I went through, this is, like I said, this is back in the day. So I had a 1100 CCA battery that I would use for my competition. I got up to 6 positive and 6 negative 1/0 cables running from my battery to my amps, and I continually gained power every time.
Yeah, you will with batteries.
Yes, because the way it pulls it, it's not force fed into the amp. The amp's really trying to pull hard, and that's why amps heat. That's part of the reason amps heat up, is when they convert that energy and pulling that. I mean, it takes energy to make energy. So.
Well, I mean, 400 amps. If you like, you don't have to take my word for it. Like LeVar Burton. I don't know how many people know. I don't know how many people watching this know who LeVar Burton is.
Star Trek.
Yeah.
Next Generation. That's right.
Yeah.
Blind boy.
Now he's doing all the ads on that Star Trek online game on Facebook. I don't know if you've seen that in your feed.
No.
He looks like he's about 70 now. Well, he probably is. In any case, now like 400 amps at 15 feet through pure copper 0 gauge cable, you're not going to see that much drop. Batteries can discharge way more than 400 amps. Like even just a regular old Walmart battery, if everything's right, and like you were talking about impedance earlier, if everything's right and there's low resistance and the amplifier can accept it, and all the planets align and everything's perfect, a battery for a 3 second burp could discharge maybe 1,600 amps or something like that. So that's why you can see by adding additional runs of cable. But the moral of the story, run from the alternator to your closest battery, use the battery terminals as a junction point, trap load the cable off the batteries back to the amplifiers.
Woody McDonald puts on here, haha, reading Rainbow Guy. So
That's right.
that's where he got his start.
There's old guys on here.
Yep.
That's right. No, we have quite a few guys in our age range, mid to late 40s. That seems to be our typical demographic. We do have obviously some younger people watching, and like I said, the whole goal of this program and whatnot is to educate people and make them better at competing. Also, get them involved in the car audio industry, and we always want their cars to be safe. Kind of. We don't.
Kind of.
Well, we don't ever say add fusing,
Well,
but we don't discourage it.
Can I make a comment about fusing?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's another big question regarding alternator installations. We don't have any problem with fusing at all. I mean, I understand why people want to not do it to try and get that extra 1/100th of a volt, or whatever, and that's at their discretion to do that. But if you are going to fuse the main positive charge cable between the alternator and the positive terminal of the battery, it's as close to the battery terminal as possible, because you're really fusing the battery. You're not fusing it. As soon as that fuse pops, let's say you got in a car accident and you positive alternator charge cable and you didn't have a fuse there, it could cause a fire. If you pinch that alternator to ground, it's going to light up like a Christmas tree. If you have a fuse there right next to the battery terminal, it'll pop that battery terminal, the alternator will just stop producing current, and then everything's good. So you're really fusing the battery. The alternator doesn't per se have to be fused. You're just interrupting that pathway from the alternator to the battery, essentially.
Okay. You got anything else on your side there yet, Lucky? Or so in case you guys didn't know, Lucky's not feeling very well today. So he's kind of in and out of it. I
almost wasn't even going to do this podcast. I've been not feeling well today, very dizzy, just very disoriented. So sorry, I'm not talkative at all, but I'm here. I'm trying.
Well, he felt it was super important to be on here with Matt. He runs the Mechman Alternators.
I run Mechman. I swear by Mechman.
Yep.
So I had to be on here, but yes, I'm not myself today. Let me tell you. Yep. Justin Stolman said, what if I have a fully built GSR that makes over 200 horsepower and your 2000 Honda Civic SI 1.81 with a set? Jesus Christ, dude.
I already know where he's going with that. I would go with a 170 amp 6-phase unit with a big pulley on it.
Okay.
He's making good power with that Honda engine. He's probably spinning it to about 8,000 RPM, something like that.
Actually, that's what he said in there.
Yeah, I know. I do this every day. So yeah, you want two 2.5 inch pulley on the that's a 4-rib belt application. So there again, belt slip's a problem. I do a 170 amp alternator with a 2.5 inch pulley in one of our 6-phase units specifically, because they make really good output at low RPM. So you can run that bigger. You actually have a 2.9 inch pulley too. If it's 9, some of those guys run 9 or 10,000. So that's what you would want to do. You don't want to put a super alternator on there because it's just going to slip the belt.
So what about rotary engines? I mean, because those things are designed just to crank forever, right? So what do you?
10,000 RPM all day long.
Yeah. So what do you guys do for rotary engine vehicles?
We used to build stuff for rotaries back in the day. We've since discontinued it just because the demand.
It's a small market.
It's a small market, but it's same exact concept. Maybe 170 amp 6. We used to build alternators for a company called Extreme Rotaries in Australia, and their whole front of the engine was billet. They do 3 rotor combinations and all kinds of craziness. But you want to run like a 2-to-1, 2.5-to-1 pulley ratio, so that you're keeping you want to keep the alternator about 20,000 RPM shaft speed essentially. Okay. So if you're spinning the engine 10,000 RPM, you want to have a 2-to-1 ratio.
Okay. From Bridgetown, Barbados again, Tristan's on here. So he asked, what got you into manufacturing alternators and how the name Mechman came to be?
Well, I've been racing my entire life. I motocross. Now we campaign a couple off-road race cars. I drag raced for 17 years. Did an SPO, built the hearse and all that stuff. When I moved here to Knoxville, I actually went to work for Powermaster Alternators 16 years ago. And they bought Mechman. That's short for the mechanical man. Man named Dennis Moore. You can read about this on the About Us section at mechman.com. Dennis, I think, is 83 years old this year.
Still part of the company?
Yeah.
Awesome.
He does he's working with Tony and Moore on the regulator circuit.
Okay.
So yeah. He's essentially partially retired, but he just kind of plays with the projects that he likes. But he started the company in 1978 in Southern California.
There we go.
Powermaster bought it. They put me in charge of managing it, running it for a couple of years, and then the folks that own Powermaster retired, and they gave me the opportunity to buy Mechman. And of course, Scotty, I don't know if you know this, but Scotty, Excess Power, Scotty at that time bought Excess Power as well at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that was the same time that you bought yours. He bought Excess Power.
Yeah, Scotty is down the road for me.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
No, Scotty's a good guy. I met him. He was a competitor at World Finals, and I think Scotty. I can't remember if he was the one
with the white van.
With the white van with all crossfire, right? So So I got to tell you, the first day I met Scotty, 2005 World Finals, death match. Okay.
I was there.
So he's running all catch fire, right?
Catch fire?
Yeah. We call it catch fire back then.
I think I was there in 2006. I think it was when all the MDF dust was running out the corners of the doors and whatnot.
So anyway, we're doing the death match, and he opens up the back of his van, right? And because it was my second year at World Finals, so I was the nozzle guy, right, for the fire extinguishers. So I was standing behind it, and he goes, if those amps catch on fire, let it burn to the ground.
Let that fucker burn.
Let it burn to the ground. I don't want you to put that crap in my car.
Was that when he won the Malibu Max?
To be honest with you, I don't remember. That was my first time I met him, and he was like, "Don't you dare put that fire extinguisher in my car. If it catches on fire, you let this thing burn to the ground." And not those kind of words, though.
Right. Well, he doesn't really speak like that, really. I've known Scotty a long time.
So, but no, Scotty's good. We plan on having him on the show here coming up soon. He's really busy with inventory and just got back from Vegas for SEMA, and he's like, "Hey, I'm really busy right now, but I'm definitely, we're going to set him up because we like to talk to him, specifically on the battery side, right, with the Excess Power." Once again, he's coming from a standpoint of he was a competitor for years and at the highest level. And, he got into the industry, and now he helps and supports the people that are up and coming at the highest level in the industry, which is awesome.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah, he absolutely is. Catching anything over there yet, Lucky? Or
Justin is Stolman, would that fit in a stock mount?
Oh, yeah, he wants to know if that'll fit in his stock mount, or would he have to alter his mount to fit that GTI?
That was I thought it was an Acura Integra, or did I get...
Let's see. Fully built GSR.
Oh, GSR.
2000 Honda Civic.
Okay.
Well, so we have really beautiful billet Honda pieces, but the problem is when you start mixing and matching, doing B18 GSR head, Frankenstein motor, and all this stuff, I can't really guarantee. We actually discontinued. We used to offer them for all like the 96 through 2000 Civics and early Integras and all that stuff. And we actually discontinued them because people were mixing and matching so many parts. They would try and put the alternator in there and it wouldn't fit because there's this alternator bracket on this engine block and that. So we actually, if everything were normal in factory, they bolt directly in. It's a beautiful machine billet aluminum piece. But I guess my answer would be no, because we just don't have time to, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes,
we ship 100 alternators a day, so we really can't jack around with it's like kind of like the customer has to figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
Essentially, if you've got a engine swap thing,
Yes.
we do
If you have a modified engine bay.
Right. We do when you're stacking aftermarket this on this and that and these cylinder heads and V8 guys are the worst. Like the guys with the square body Chevy cars, they're all maybe an LS engine swap, or maybe they're using a small block Chevy accessory drive system on the front, or a March perform. There's 30 different. We build most of the alternators for those companies, but we ask these guys and we say, hey, first, if someone says, hey, I got a 78 Caprice with 6,000 watts in it, and it's got a 400, or even better than that, it's got a LS3 in it. Right. Go, okay, well, which accessory drive are you running on the front of the engine? And they go, it's LS. They're all the same. Well, they're not all the same at all. There's about 15 different LS alternator bolt patterns available.
Yeah.
So they say, hey, just if you're not sure what you're working with, or your cousin built, or whatever it is, or it's junkyard swap, or whatever the scenario is, just take a picture to us. We'll visually identify it for you and let you know what fits in there.
Yeah. So I
start stacking. Yeah. Stacking aftermarket parts and all these things, it's easy for things to not fit.
Yep. No, so that I run into that. So I have a 74 Trans Am with a 71 Pontiac 350 in it. But I have a 2020 aftermarket fuel injection system on top of that. It's 480 horses. There's not a whole bunch stock in there, and so I go to Kragen and I need a part, right? And they're like, "Oh, so what engine do you have in what car?" I'm like, "Dude, that doesn't mean anything to me. My car's way beyond that point at this, at this juncture."
Right.
So.
Well, when in doubt, send pictures.
That's right. I mean, I have a either $5,000 or $6,000 2-speed transmission because I bought it from the racetrack. So it's got a racing transmission. It's got fast and faster. The only 2 speeds it has. Doesn't have overdrive. None of that. Yeah. So it's got a power glide, but it doesn't have overdrive. Doesn't have none of that crap, right? And so when I go to to get a new filter for it or whatever, like, what do you got? Dude, okay, I need a turbo 350 transmission parts, but that's not what I got. But that's what I have to tell them, because otherwise it just confuses the guys at the parts store, because they're not paid well. So.
Right. And like I said, you start stacking all kinds of different aftermarket stuff. There's no way they could really know.
Yep. Oh yeah, I have a shortened shaft on my for my drive line, so it's a shortened aluminum shaft. Yeah, like I'm going to go to Kragen and say, yeah, I need a 42-inch shaft for, and they're like, well, why is it 42 inches? Don't worry about it. That's not what I'm asking you for.
Why don't you ask your mom?
Yeah. Whoa. Ask your mom, he says. That's good stuff right there.
I'll tell you why you need 42 inches.
That's good stuff. But so are you guys on your website? Do you guys sell direct? Do you guys only sell through retailers? How do you sell?
Both. You can go to mechman.com, order whatever you need. There's a lot, like I said, pictures and 360-degree views where you can look at all sides of the alternator, and lots of information. Like I mentioned earlier, the technical resources at the top. There's an article on how to find shorter belts. It's got an online belt catalog and some other things. Mm-hmm. Just all the stuff we addressed and there. You can buy direct through the store, right through mechman.com, or you can buy through Down for Sound Shop, Alternator Outlet, Summit Racing Equipment.
So I bet you don't suggest the help belts. I mean, you can get a belt size off of it pretty easy. That's the ones that you overlap them, you cut them, and they put a clamp on them.
Hell no.
But
I would stock alternator.
But I will tell you, when you're caught out in the desert and your belt breaks, it will get you where you're going. That's all I'm saying.
Off your pants. That was the old trick back in the day.
Yeah, pee in the radiator, use your pants. Yeah, all that stuff.
I have peed in a radiator more than once.
Me also. And, so
off-road. off-road racing and you fill up, I mean, like our cars, and you carry 2 gallons of water on the car, and you put all nothing else left, and yeah, I have peed in radiators before. That has happened.
Yep. No, I drove a lot in Reno, part of my life where I was started driving and whatnot. I was in Reno, and there's a lot of desert in Reno, and you go out to a lake.
I graduated from UNR.
Oh, did you? Awesome. What year?
2005.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. So I go to Reno probably once a month at least. My aunt lives right above the baseball field. Right there, like if you look up the baseball field, right up there on that hill.
UNR.
Yep, she lives right over there.
I'm going out. My brother's graduating from UNR. I'm going to be out there 2nd through the 5th. I'll go visit Rusty up in Spanish Springs.
Well, when is that?
December 2nd through the 5th.
Oh, 2nd, 5th. No, I got my anniversary on the 5th. So yeah, I won't be there that weekend. Something about my wife wants to do something for our anniversary or something silly like that.
What?
Same.
And I believe this is either our 30th or 31st anniversary. So
that's a long time.
It is. Both her and I went to Sparks High. Well, I went to every high school in Reno because I got kicked out of them all. So, but I spent a year and a half at Sparks High, so that was the longest I was at any of the high schools.
So we actually had a facility in Reno for 3 years.
Yes.
I tried to have a facility here and there, and it didn't pan out. It was getting too expensive, and it just wasn't working. It was right down the street from Sky High.
Oh, okay.
But when I go out there, I'll go visit Rusty at DC. So the first reasonably sized system, it was like 2,000 watt system that I ever had, was installed by Rusty. When he had a one day install shop.
Yep, Sound Solutions right there in Sparks, right over there off of Glendale. Yep. No, we still do shows right down the street there at Baldini's for a year. So, we actually considered Baldini's as a World Finals location this last year. But, the altitude and whatnot and potential weather made it difficult in October to do a World Finals in Reno, obviously.
You never know when it's going to snow up there all over the pass.
Dude, I've been in Reno when it snowed in July. So.
Yeah. I've seen it. We always used to do 4th of July up at Lake Tahoe.
Yep.
I saw it snow 2 4th of Julys in a row. Up at Kings Beach.
All right. So we're actually getting pretty dang close to the hour. Dude, I really appreciate talking with you. Lucky, you want to hit him with the final question here?
What is your definition of a base head? I get like one little thing to say in the whole show, man.
Hey, I've been trying to hit at you. I know you're not feeling it.
I'm not in it today. I apologize.
I just thought you were swiping right on Tinder or something.
I was, but I then moved on past that.
Or is it Grindr? I don't know. I don't mean to assume anything.
All right. No, I'm past that now. So
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah, you're good.
So my definition of a bass head is just someone who embraces they got a $500 Ford Explorer and they put the biggest speakers in Ford and then replace them when they get their next check, and they like hanging and just doing their thing, like getting demos, giving demos, and lifestyle,
Right.
It definitely is a lifestyle.
It is a lifestyle. I hear so many people say, it's however they want to put it, hobby, sport, whatever. To me, it's a lifestyle. I love it.
Yep.
Yeah. But questions? No, there's no more questions. I've kind of been just scrolling up and down.
So
it goes, they pop in all.
So real quick, are you guys doing a Black Friday sale on your website?
We don't do any sales. To be respectful of our dealers,
okay.
But I'm pretty sure I know an Alternator Outlet's doing something, Summit's doing something, Dropping Hertz is doing something. I hope I'm not leaving anyone out right now.
Do you have Down for Sound?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that guy does crazy sales for Black Friday and
they're all knocking prices down. All of Cyber Week, really.
Yeah.
But we don't do sales direct just because I don't want to,
understand
undercut our dealers, be respectful of them.
Yep. And I talked to Justin Hankey today at DC, and
Super
he
good
said,
dude.
yeah, he's super good, and he said he's running a special for his dealers. So I can't really disclose what that special is, but your dealer may have a special for you if you want to go talk to your local retailer and get some Black Friday deals on DC gear. Also talk to Nick from Incriminator. He's going to have a whole bunch of Black Friday stuff. If you go to his website now, you'll start seeing some of it is popping up from Incriminator. Jay's Alarms down in Fresno going crazy with some black dude. That guy, he does so much Rockford Fosgate that he gets. I mean, he does like the $10 woofer deals, just like Best Buy
Wow.
used to do and stuff like that. You know.
Back in the day.
Yeah, so he does insane crazy deals. I mean, like literally, Jay will sell a subwoofer amp combo at the cost that he bought it at on a Black Friday sale. So
Jay's is definitely the raddest in Fresno.
I mean, the guy's awesome. He's a great time. He's a big supporter of all the DB drag stuff. Even came to World Finals. Comes to all the big shows. He's a great guy. Anyway, so he'll be running Black Friday sales. Yeah, just like I said. So if you guys are in the car audio thing and you guys are looking to buy something or whatnot, look at these people for the Black Friday deals. And if you don't see something, call and ask. I'm sure Mechman will make some kind of deal with their dealers and whatnot. Say, hey, if one of their dealers called them and said, hey, I'm running a Black Friday sale, can I work this deal with you? And the kind of deals they work out usually works out for everybody involved. Money back on product and whatnot.
We'll call around and ask who has that particular item in stock.
Yep.
If they call in directly, we will defer you to the person with the best deal or whoever or whatever.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. I mean, like I said, nothing but respect for you guys. Like I said, Mechman's been around a long time. You guys been doing your thing. You've been supporting car audio. We appreciate that. Appreciate you guys doing what you guys do. It's like I said, we're here to support the community as a whole. You got any last things to say, Matt, before we head on out of here?
Just thanks, appreciation, for giving me a time to run my yapper. And I know Lucky's not feeling well. I appreciate you coming on, man. I think you added to the show for sure. So just appreciate the opportunity.
My looks maybe or something about it right now. Yeah, I apologize to everybody. Just today was a bad day. I'm sitting here, my head's spinning right now. I can't wait for this thing to be over so I can lay down.
I hope you feel better, man. Take some vitamin C.
Yeah.
So anything else, Lucky? Lotsofwatts.com.
Yeah.
Hit all that up, will you? Christmas.
You go to my YouTube channel.
Your basehead buddies need his stuff.
Yeah, there you go. Lotsofwatts.com. Go to my YouTube channel, Lucky McGovern. Hit the subscribe button and the bell notification. And that's it for me.
All right. And for me, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to all our viewers and people that tune in later and watch our podcast and then again listen to it back on iHeart and whatnot on the audio only versions. Like I said, happy Thanksgiving to you guys. I do know we got a couple shows coming up. We have Fresno Toys for Tots. It's a T.W.I.C.A event, and then Nyman's. And if you guys don't know what's going on, you guys need to go to Nyman's. It is the best thing ever. I see some angry faces popping up there. Make sure you hit the angry faces on Facebook. Thumbs up, likes, share it with as many people as you can. Let's help grow the community, grow our show, and make it as good as we possibly can. If you want to tip the host, Lucky and I share that. Remember, it is Venmo at SonicFX and Cash App $SonicFX. Put in the notes, tip or podcast or whatever, and we will share that income. I appreciate you guys watching tonight. Those people in Barbados, hey, Thanksgiving's where we all get fat and eat turkeys and watch football. That's the gist of that, in case you guys aren't familiar with our Thanksgiving. I do know we have some people over in Germany, and we had a couple of views from Norway last week. So hopefully we continue to grow internationally. I know we got people that watch us from Australia also. So once again, hey, thank you guys for tuning in this week. Thank you to Lucky and Matt for being here with me. And guys, happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you next week, 6 p.m. California time on This Week in Car Audio.